Welcome to the Prophecy Club. I've got Bill Schnoebelen on the phone with me again today. We're going to be talking about mind control and Las Vegas massacre and all this sort of stuff. Who's Bill Schnoebelen? Well, he's one of my favorite speakers of the Prophecy Club. This guy, author of 8 books. He was, before being set free from Jesus, about Jesus, he was a satanic and voodoo high priest, a second-degree member of the Church of Satan, a New Age guru, an occultist, a channeler, a 90th degree Mason, a Knight Templar, a member of the Illuminati. He taught astrology, tarot cards, astral projection. Today, he's a doctor of naturopathy, a minister, a soul winner, and he's made 12 DVDs with Prophecy Club. Probably one of the most popular ones is the double DVD exposing the Illuminati from within. Now, the DVDs we're offering today is, again, both by him. Vaccines, Mind Control, and the Mark, made in 2015, and then Mind Control, Gun Confiscation, made in 2007. So today we're going to be asking the question and discussing, are the shootings of the Stockton Schoolyard, McDonald's, Columbine, Jonesboro, Amish School, Virginia Tech, Tucson, IHOP, there's a lot of them. Aurora, Colorado, Sandy Hook, Charleston, Church in Lafayette, Louisiana, San Bernardino, Orlando, the Steve Scalise Republican ballpark shooting, which, by the way, I think was to get the Republicans to be willing to do some voting in Congress to make a real change, because like 2.5 months later, then all of a sudden the Las Vegas massacre takes place, okay? And as I said in the broadcast the other day, I think the real objective was not just to kill a few Republicans, but they were hoping 5, 10, 15 Republicans out there practicing baseball, and this guy shows up, and their plan was that there wasn't another shooter around, and this guy would have been, it was a killing field. And I think they were really going to kill 5, 10, 15, 20 Republicans, and then the Republicans, in all of their remorse, are going to say, we got to do something about all these guns. We got to, and of course, right now they're calling to remove the Second Amendment. Do you believe this? So, Bill Schnoebelen, welcome back to the Prophecy Club, brother.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
All right, so here's what we want to do. We got 10 bullet points that are really kind of defining the pattern. Now, the point is, if these are just random, crazed, out-of-control Americans, then there's not really going to be a pattern. Whereas if it is mind control, MK Ultra, Monarch programming stuff, they're going to follow a pattern. So, Bill, I'll read off the 10 bullet points. You tell us how this might be the pattern, and this might. And we're not saying all of this is all the pattern. We're not saying all of this is mind control. I mean, goodness, someone can get a gun and go do stupid things and not be mind controlled. But some of it is. So, here's the first point for you. They attack our safe places. We hear this is a quiet town. Your comment?
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember back with the McDonald's statement, what could be safer than McDonald's, or a schoolyard? I mean, these were places that, people felt safe. And it really raises up the anxiety level, because if people think, well, if I can get shot up in a McDonald's, what can we do? And, of course, if there's no safe places anymore, then what's the other solution? Gun control.
And the second pattern is they tend to be lone gunmen. Now, not all the time, but that's generally easier to coordinate one mind-controlled person rather than a group of them. Your comment?
Well, yes, and obviously that's true. But beyond that, if it's one person, then it's harder to prove any kind of conspiracy. Just like all the way back with Lee Harvey Oswald and JFK shooting, it was like, he was just this lone commie nut. And because he got shot within a day of him being apprehended, there was no way to question him. Because there were obvious links, both with Freemasonry and with the CIA, to Kennedy's assassination. The idea is if it's a lone gunman, then it's just an isolated nut. It's no kind of conspiracy that requires more work on the part of investigators. Because, that's part of it, is they just want to shut the door and say, case closed, let's ban all the guns. That's what they want to do. And they understand that the more people that are in on a conspiracy, the harder it is to keep it quiet. The saying goes, if a secret that is known to more than one person is no longer a secret. So the more people you bring into the conspiracy, the more likely it is somebody's going to get unraveled.
Well, just like with Lee Harvey Oswald, I mean, the cameras actually caught him saying, I'm a patsy. And my suspicion is that's the reason he had to be eliminated, because he was going to tell. He was going to stand up and say, I didn't do it. I wasn't even there. And that was going to mess up their plan, you see. Okay, third one is random targets, little or no connection to the victims.
There's this element of randomness. It's like lightning just comes out of the air and strikes you. I mean, we understand, we don't like it, but we understand the idea if someone knows someone and they get mad or they go crazy and they shoot them or whatever, that we understand. But for a total stranger to just start shooting people they don't even know, that is an act of utter madness, beyond the norm.
Well, I think the heart of the human person out there is looking for, what is this guy? Is he a political nut? I mean, like, for example, with Steve Scalise in the Republican ballpark, okay, it was a political thing. And then others say, well, was this a religious nut? Well, there was kind of that going on down at the Charleston Church in Lafayette, Louisiana. So they're trying to say, okay, well, if there's a reason, if there's some, then we can stop it. But when there's really no reason, it's just a random target, that's, again, that heads more towards gun confiscation.
Exactly.
Next one, fourth one, is no motive. The gunman has little or no reason to kill his victims. I mean, like right now, they're saying about the Las Vegas massacre. Why would this guy, he's not even a gun nut. I mean, why would he go do this? See, and there's no discernible pattern, meaning no way to stop this, removing our anonymous safety, shootings impossible to stop, raising the fear level, meaning you got to confiscate those guns.
Yeah. Again, you've got this anonymity, you've got this lightning striking out of the blue, this unpredictable thing, this thing that's harder to protect yourself from, and that's the problem when you have all of these factors building up. Which, and like you say, Stan, you got like probably 95% of these mass shootings all fall into this pattern. It's the narrative they're wanting to push, and the narrative is you need to have gun control. You need to get all these guns off the street. Right.
Fifth one is usually they're a nice guy or a loner. They're not a nutcase. Some of their neighbors say, well, you know, he was kind of a loner. He didn't kind of just stayed to himself. And there's nothing, if they're a religious thing, well, then they go after the religious. If they're a political thing, they go after the political thing. Or if they're, you know, like on this drug or that drug, then they find the cause and they can fix it. But when they don't have a cause, they're a nice guy, maybe a little bit of a loner, not necessarily a nutcase. Well, we got to confiscate the guns.
Exactly. And that is the problem. There's no way to predict this stuff, people think, and so therefore, you know, the solution, as you say, is just confiscating the guns.
Also, they tend to be active on social media. I suspect that that's how the MK Ultra hit team is selecting their victims, meaning the victims are the ones that are doing the killing.
That might very well be. And again, see, that phenomenon didn't exist when I did the video back in 2007. There really was very little, if any, of what we now know as Facebook and Twitter and all that. So, yeah, they're going to keep coming up with new ways to mess with people's heads. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing that they are just totally trying to find these people, trigger them, and before you know it, you know, they're going to be pushing even harder and harder for gun control.
They never surrender to the police, always self-destruct or suicide by cop.
There's nobody to talk to them, like interrogate. There's no way to follow the threads, so to speak, because the old saying, you know, dead men tell no tales. And so there you go. This thing is just impossible to predict. It's impossible to solve. And, of course, it fits their narrative that if they're saying, well, if there's all these nutty people walking around out there, and, you know, just to back up a minute, Stan, you got to realize one thing. I mean, right now in America, it's something like 1 in 4 people are on psychiatric drugs. Think of that. You know, if you walk there, you see 4 people on the street and walking down the street, the odds are one of them is on some sort of drug. And I don't mean for, like, blood pressure. I mean mind-controlled drugs, psychotropic, psychiatric drugs, whatever term you want to use. And all of those people are at risk for this kind of manipulation. Absolutely. So, you know, What do you do with that?
So maybe they're not just selecting their targets via social media, but maybe via the pharmaceutical chain.
Well, yeah, because, of course, even though they say, oh, your medical records are confidential, yeah, right, especially since Obamacare. They're about as confidential as, like writing something on the wall of a library that anybody can read. They're not confidential. The government can get their hands on them. If the government can get their hands on them, then so can the shadow government, the deep state, whatever word you want to use.
And then the calls for gun control always start immediately.
Oh, yeah. There was a movie out a few months ago about how, when they were actually saying this, how never let a good crisis go to waste.
Right.
No matter what it is, whether it's some riot somewhere, and they'll try and spin it to make people want to have, because you see the whole agenda of both the New World Order and the progressives, which are basically a child of the New World Order, is they want more government control. They want your government, just basically controlling every aspect of your life and your use of guns or not using guns. They'll do anything they can to further that, including killing people, 20 or 30 or 40, or even in this case, I guess it's crowding 60 people that are dead.
I was trying to remember it. I was even trying to look it up right quick on the internet. Okay, there, I just looked it up. It was Gina Davis. The movie was The Long Kiss Goodnight. It's about a woman suffering from amnesia that was some kind of a spy. The bottom line is she was trying to keep the CIA from running a money operation, in other words, exploding a big bomb in a city, so that they could get more funding for their CIA other stuff. And I really believe that a lot of the things that are going on is those kind of things. In other words, not honest. Is this a push to get more money to track and monitor us?
Probably, yeah, because that's what they want to do. They aren't going to be happy until they know where everybody is at every moment, what you're spending your money on, what you're looking at on the Internet, and they already pretty much have that unless you take real heavy-duty security procedures. Let your congressmen, your representatives know, if this is what you believe, that you don't want more gun control. Because, it has to be said that the places that have the most strict gun control are the ones that have the worst gun problem. Chicago is one of the strictest gun control cities in America, and so is Washington, D.C., and both of them, Chicago especially, have a horrible crime problem. There is no evidence that gun control works except to create a fascist dictatorship. The fact that Mao Zedong, the fact that Hitler, Mussolini in Italy, they all brought in gun control as part of their rise to power, because people understand that an armed society is a free society. Ben Franklin warned about it. Not that I like Ben Franklin very much, but, he said, if it's about, are you willing to exchange freedom for security? Are you willing to, and of course, since 9/11, America has given up all sorts of their freedoms for the illusion of security.
I think he said anyone that will exchange freedom for security will have neither.
And, of course, that's true.
Okay, the thing I want to point out here, which I haven't heard anyone else pointing out, is July 14th, 2017, James T. Hodgkins was on Facebook. His family and friends were shocked to find out that he had committed such a heinous act. And, of course, this is the guy that went out and shot Steve Scalise, total of 4 people, 2 people connected to the politics, 2 people connected with being police officers, and they were wounded. And again, my suspicion is that the real objective, what they're really wanting, I'm talking about the MK Ultra hit team, what they were really hoping is that 5, 10, 15 Republicans would be out there and they would not have 2 Capitol police officers with weapons to shoot back. And then this guy would have had a killing field. He would have killed all of them. All of them would have been dead before he walked off. And then probably would have still shot himself in the head. And then 2.5 months later, Las Vegas happens. And then now we've got 5, 10, 15, 20 Republicans that just got shot by this crazy guy, this James T. Hodgkinson. And now Stephen Paddock comes along from the Mandalay Bay Hotel, shooting from 9 to 11 minutes, killing 58 people, wounding 527, and turning the weapon on himself also. Then they immediately have the document all drawn up, ready to introduce legislation. And now we're hearing for the first time, no, we're not just talking about more controls on guns. We're talking about totally repealing the Second Amendment. Now, if we'd had 15 or 20 Republicans dead 2.5 months ago, July the 14th, now October 1, who knows? Maybe they would have repealed the Second Amendment. I think that that's the real plan. I think that's where they were really going with this. Your comment?
Well, yeah, I think that's possibly true. And, of course, it didn't work out in terms of the congressman. There was intervention from armed citizens. The more they keep doing this, the more they keep having these shootings, there is a certain number of Americans that just aren't smart enough to really be an informed electorate, and they're going to say, gee, maybe we just need to get rid of the Second Amendment. And if they can build enough of a consensus for that, of course, it would be a huge thing because it's not easy to either change the Constitution, but it could happen. And we need to, speak out against that, and we need to also try and get as many people saved because, of course, if they're saved, they're not likely to turn into mind-controlled zombies and start shooting up, people.
Well, if I'm correct, if this is an MK Ultra hit team that keeps turning these people into killing machines, into assassins, they said, if I'm remembering right, they said that Columbine was the worst shooting incident in U.S. history. Then they said Orlando was the worst shooting incident in U.S. history. Now they're saying Las Vegas. In other words, it's increasing. If I'm right, it's not going to stop, and we're going to see more of these. I don't think that Stephen Paddock was really trying to do any kind of explosion with his car. I think that's all part of just planting things on him. I think that we will. So the real objective is they got to get the guns out of the hands of the Christians. Let's call it what it is. Yeah. And they got to get the guns out of the hands of the Christians to make America easy to take over. They have to take over America because we represent the wall that is prohibiting them from having their new world order where they can put their Antichrist leader on the throne and then they can start the mark of the beast, kill Christians. So the first thing they have to do is to remove the guns. They get the guns gone, they get their goal. Your comment?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And you're right. Not that everybody that owns a gun is a Christian, and all, but they tend to be, like this guy. They say this guy targeted a country western concert because those kind of people tend to be right wing Christians that like country music.
Right. Good point.
So in the same way, they're assuming that probably a significant majority of the people that own firearms in America are Christians. It is a good way to disarm the people you want to disarm, bam, just like that. We need to pray against it. I think we need to pray also for our leaders, President Trump, that they would have the courage to not give into this kind of hysteria. Because
Absolutely.
That's what it is, hysteria. It's government-produced hysteria.
See, I think the ballpark shooting kind of blew up in their face because they were only wounded and they turned into heroes. But let me ask you this. What if the guy had not checked? I'm talking about James T. Hodgkinson, the Republican ballpark shooting. Let's say he didn't check. Let's say he didn't ask the other lawmaker in the parking lot where he asked him and said, hey, are these Republicans in here? Let's say if he hadn't asked that, if he had wound up at the wrong ballpark, or they were at the wrong practice, wrong time, and what if he'd have gone out and killed 10, 15, 20 Democrats? What if one of them had been Chuck Schumer? Then it would have blew up in their face because, and let me also say something else here. Yeah. I think that too many times the Republicans are always on defensive. And I think we need to put the Democrats on the defense. And if Trump will ever just call me, I will tell him, okay, here's how you do that. What you need to do is issue an executive order declaring that America is a Christian nation. Then you need to introduce legislation to require the King James Bible to be taught in all schools. Now, yes, we will be able to hear the Democrats screaming all across America. But when they start saying, we want to get rid of the guns, then we, like, for example, hey, let's do something with butt stock. Then we say, okay, we have an agenda too. And our agenda is to put the King James Bible back in schools. So I tell you what, we'll get rid of the butt stocks if you put the Bible back in the schools. And they will scream, they will be spitting blood. They will be so mad. Blood will be coming out of their eyes. But it will put the Republicans on the offensive and the Democrats on the run for a change. But yet we don't ever bring that up. Why not bring that up? And then all of a sudden, they'll start shutting up. And every time they bring up guns, we bring up the Bible. There are things that we can do, just that the ruling elite don't want us to do that because it's all, and it won't happen, because we are heading to world government, we are heading the Antichrist and the mark of the beast. Your comment?
Well, yeah, and the fact is, most politicians lack the moral courage to do what you just suggested. They've been cowed for decades by the liberal elite and the liberal media that they don't want to appear to be hateful. Even though what you just said makes eminent sense, and it's biblical, they won't do it, probably. That's just the fact of the culture. The culture we live in has become so watered down and so biblically illiterate that they think that that's stupid. They can't even imagine doing such a thing.
Can you imagine if the Republicans introduce legislation that says we want to put the King James Bible back in the school, require it to be read for at least 45 minutes every day, and we also pass legislation, you do something like this, you do some kind of a mass shooting, and they'll have to define all that, but they'll never do it. All of a sudden, there would be you could hear the screaming all across America. But the point is, the Republicans would no longer be on the defensive, we'll be on the offense. And we would see all of this ballpark shooting and this foolishness come to a screeching halt. So there is something that can be done. It's just that it'll never happen.
Well, yeah, and that was my point. I mean, they lack the moral courage to do that. I mean, we don't have Jefferson and John Adams and John Quincy Adams nowadays. We just have mostly gutless wonders. I mean, there's a few that are strong in their convictions, but most are not.
Tell us a little bit about the 2 DVDs. We've got a couple of minutes left.
Well, sure. Yeah, well, of course, the main one, the mind control gun confiscation, we go through where all this started and, you know, the history behind it, and also we examine, like you were mentioning, all these different shootings and how they fit into a pattern. We look at the technology that the shadow government has been using and is continuing to use, and how it relates to the mark of the beast, and how it relates to the fact that they're using this to whittle away our freedoms. You know, especially because if you don't have the freedom to be armed, you don't really have any freedom. And you know, and then we talk about, you know, possible solutions. Nothing quite as draconian as what you were saying, Stan, but we still got some solutions. And then the vaccines DVD, we talk about, you know, how dangerous medically and spiritually vaccines are, because they are, I mean, you're basically putting stuff into either your children's body or your body that is just both physically toxic, but it's also spiritually unclean. It's not kosher, and it will just mess you up. You're basically injecting an animal DNA into a human being, and you never know what that's going to do. And that's why you've seen so many diseases, like I mentioned earlier, like autism or whatever, that are just skyrocketing. All the people with children with ADHD, with other nervous disorders, I mean, motor disorders are on the rise. And all this is just in the last 65 years since we started doing widespread vaccines. And I really, if I were a parent or you know, whatever, I would not vaccine my children. And I know that's a very controversial thing to say, but there you go. That would be my advice. So then we document why that's the case in the video.
Well, and also I want to say, just in case I do leave my comments in this radio broadcast, I am not suggesting that they really do that. I'm just saying that if they really want a solution, there are solutions. Now, let me spell it out. I'm not suggesting that we kill people and their families that do these crazy massacre things. And I know that they're never going to put the Bible back in the schools, but I am saying that there are some things that could be done. In the meantime, how do we get a hold of you? What's your website?
Okay, the website is withoneaccord.org. And we have tons of free stuff there people can download. We have all of my books and DVDs. We also have a YouTube channel people can go to. We've got close to 70 videos up now teaching various aspects of the gospel. So go for it. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for being on, Bill.
You bet.
I stopped the broadcast a little bit early because I wanted to take just a personal minute with you for just a moment. I want to really, just like from the heart, okay, encourage you to do something. And this is it's not about sending a donation. I want to encourage you to place an order for this DVD I'm about to make, this coming Saturday night, called Revelations on Revelation. Everyone wants to hear God speak to you. Everyone does. There's a lot of different ways he does. But as I was going through memorizing the book of Revelation, I promise I got 12 specific revelations. Now, let me explain what I mean by a revelation. Sometimes it takes but a millisecond to all of a sudden get a download. And it may take 2 or 3 minutes for you to understand or be able to explain to someone what just happened. And in my case, it's taken, I don't know, some 300 PowerPoint slides to be able to explain what I got in those 12 revelations. And this is not me teaching through Revelation verse by verse, brothers and sisters. I promise you, when you get this DVD, you will be really glad you have it. Now, I'll agree. Right now, Revelation is not a really big topic in the churches. I'll even say across America in general. But I can tell you that it's probably about 10 years ago, God spoke to me in the night and told me that the day would come when Bible prophecy is the number one topic on the globe. All people, all nations, all languages. Bible prophecy. They want to hear what God is saying about the last days. This comes very close to being able to give you as close to as much information as we possibly have about the last days. I really, really encourage you to place your order for this. Now, if you do, you're going to get 2 DVDs, and they're going to be chock full of information. I mean, as I just said, over 300 PowerPoint slides. That's a lot. I'm going to be speaking October 14, 15, that's Saturday and Sunday night, this coming Saturday and Sunday night at Spirit of Prophecy Church Prophecy Club, 2540 K Avenue in Plano. But if you can't make that, then order the DVD. If you order it before October the 14th, then it's a gift of $40. However, in other words, it's like an early order gift offer, a very special thing, okay? After that, we ask a gift of $50. But I have to say, if you gave a $100 donation for these 2 DVDs, I think it's really going to be worth it. Now, let me give you a brief overview of some of the things that are on it. For example, you ask most people, and they'll tell you that Jesus is the primary point of the Old Testament, the New Testament, the whole Bible, everything. And I was shocked to find out that actually Jesus is not the primary message of Revelation. And I think if Jesus would speak to you right now, he'd say he's right. As a matter of fact, as I go through these, all right, here, let me just say this. Friday night at our Bible study. So I'm teaching through Revelation verse by verse in our Bible study right now, which is, by the way, starts Friday night at 6:30, except this particular Friday night, we have a Friday night off because I'm speaking the next night. But I'm going through Revelation verse by verse. And as a result, when I would hit those verses where I had a revelation, I began to bring just part of it to our Bible study crowd. I have to say, their eyes were opened. And these are people that know their Bible. And it's hard to get a wow out of them. But the information I brought Friday night, it got a wow. I heard several wows. And there was several times where it went, oh, yeah, okay, I see that. Especially on the Morning Star. So I'm just encouraging you, don't make a mistake. Get this DVD, Revelations on Revelation. Order before the 14th, gift of $40. After October 14th, it's a gift of $50. ProphecyClub.com, 785-266-1112. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. And also, please send me your testimony. Ask Stan at ProphecyClub.com. God bless.